Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you're doing well. Are you in the mood for some sparkling romance? I hope so, because that's the name of the latest edition of the GGC Treasure bag. And we're going to be making this gorgeous necklace and earring set using the beads from that bag. Now, if you're not familiar with the GGC Treasure bag, I'll leave a little bit of information down below, along with a link to the website. As you can see, it features a stunning faceted crystal heart pendant and some very pretty sparkly beads along the strands of the necklace as well as the earrings. Now, in addition to making this necklace and earring set, I'm going to take you through the process of how to select beads and components from a bead collection, whether it's a limited edition or a bead subscription. It can be a little bit challenging at times to receive such large amounts of beads, but I'll show you how to sort through all of them, and then I'll show you step by step how to come up with a design. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Here we have the GGC Treasure bag. I'm not exactly sure when it was released, but I believe it was released sometime in the beginning of January of this year. And can you believe how big this bag is, guys? Look at this. It is huge. It always comes loaded with beads. But anyway, like I mentioned in the intro, the name of this collection is Sparkling Romance, and it's definitely Valentine's Day themed. And if you haven't seen the unbagging video, I'll link it down below. But anyway, today's tutorial is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to show you my process from the beginning, from the moment I receive a collection like this. I've had a couple of viewers ask me about my process, and that's what I want to share with you today. So I'm going to start by emptying out the contents. As you can see, there are quite a few items here. There's actually a total of 27 items, and it can be a little daunting at first, deciding what to make. And I'll admit, it happens to me pretty much every time. I don't usually come up with a design right away. It takes me a while. And part of the reason it takes me a while is because I need to sit down and look at all the items and play with them by teaming up the different beads with the different components and pendants, etc. But one of the first things I try to choose is the focal piece, whether it's a bracelet, a necklace, or a pair of earrings. Now, sometimes I start with an idea. For example, I'll tell myself, okay, I'm going to make a bracelet, and then I'll look for the focal for that bracelet. Or if it's a necklace, I'll look for the pendant. But other times I really don't have anything in mind, and I get inspiration once I see what focals are included. So in looking at this collection, I'm seeing quite a few focals. I'm seeing this one right here. This is a heart locket. I think it's adorable. I'm seeing these two right here. I really like these, but these look like a pair of earrings to me. But I guess you could make a pendant using one of them. And then I'm seeing this one here. I really do love this one. And I fell in love with this one the minute I saw it. So I think for today's project, we're going to use this one, and I'm going to make a necklace. So I'm going to put it aside. So once you've decided the focal, you then have to select the beads that are going to go with it. And I usually try to pick up the colors that I see in the focal. And in this one, I'm seeing a little bit of purple or lavender. So I'm going to try to find beads that are similar to that color. But before I do that, I want to eliminate those that don't match. So for example, I don't think this pink color is going to match. Not necessarily because of the color, but because the beads are not faceted, just like the crystal is. So I don't think this is going to coordinate really well. So I'm going to remove this one. I know I'm not going to use seed beads, so I'm going to remove these seed beads. I'm not going to use these comb beads, so I'm going to remove these comb beads. And then we go ahead and remove these because we're not going to be using these, or the heart pendant. Now, do you want to make a pair of earrings? So I need to keep that in mind as I go through the process of elimination. I'm going to remove these because the color doesn't match. And I'm going to remove these red ones as well, because this color definitely does not match. And neither do these beads here. So let's see, what else do we have? I need to remove these. So now I'm getting closer to the colors that I'm seeing in that heart pendant. Let's take a look at these here. These have a little bit of lavender, but for some reason they don't coordinate really well with this pendant. So I'm not going to use these. These definitely do match. These go really well with this pendant, as you can see. So I'm going to keep these. So we're getting closer now. Now these do have some of the similar colors that I'm seeing in the pendant, but some of these beads are opaque, and I'm not sure if they'll work really well with this crystal, which is clear. So I'm going to remove these. I don't want to use these cubes because they don't go with a heart theme. And now I have these two, which seem to coordinate pretty well with this pendant. This one definitely does. Let's take a look. As you can see, it picks up the purple in that pendant. So I'm going to keep these beads. And I think these do as well because I'm seeing a little bit of pink along the bottom there. I'm not sure if you guys can see that. So I'm going to keep these, but I'm not going to use as many as these. I want to use more of these beads than these. And I'll show you in just a few moments what I mean by that. And I don't think I'm going to use the clear beads for this project, so I'm going to remove the clear beads. I'm also going to remove these because these have a little bit of green and they don't match the colors of the pendant. So now I'm left with all these components. I don't think I'm going to use these, but I might change my mind. I may use these for earrings, I'm not sure. I don't think I want to use these because these have rhinestones, and even though they're heart charms, it's not the same kind of heart that I'm seeing on this pendant. This is more of an abstract shape. So I'm going to remove these. I hope that makes sense. Same thing with these. These have more of a traditional heart shape, whereas the pendant does not. So I'm going to remove these. And here's some more clear beads. I'm removing these. So now I'm left with these items. I have some middle column beads, some chain, toggle clasps, and some charms right here. I don't think I'm going to use chain today, so I'm going to remove it. And the reason I'm removing it is because I'm thinking about making beaded components instead. And I don't want to incorporate these column beads into my beaded components, so I'm going to remove these as well. So now I'm left with this. These are toggle clasps, and these are some charms. Now the heart shape on these is pretty traditional. It's a traditional heart shape, but it's going to be in the back of the necklace, and I do want to use one of these toggle clasps, and I think these are absolutely adorable, so I'm going to use one of these. So now the only item left are these charms, and I may use some of the little ones because I think they're so cute, but I'm not exactly sure. But like I said, I can decide that later on. So that's basically how I go through the process of selecting my beads, guys. I hope this has helped. You start with a focal, and then you select the beads and components that go with that focal. You have to take several things into account. You have to consider the colors, the finishes, the shapes, whether or not you want transparent or opaque beads, and whether or not you want facets. And of course, then you have to decide on what metal components you're going to use, and the color of the metals as well. And I'm pretty satisfied so far with what I've chosen. So let's go ahead and get started with today's project. I'm going to start by going over the sizes with you. And by the way, the reason I decided to make beaded components instead of stringing the beads is because of the bail on this pendant. I'm actually going to remove that bail, and I'm going to use a jump ring instead. But another reason I decided on beaded components is because it was what came to my mind as I was looking at the pendant. And I really can't explain that, but that's another thing you have to consider. You have to decide whether you're going to do a stringing project, beaded components, or something else. So there's actually a lot that goes into the design process when you think about it. And to be honest, most of the time I'm not thinking of these things consciously. They usually just happen as I'm looking at the beads. I guess the more you do this, the easier it's going to be, and it'll just come naturally to you eventually. So anyway, let's go over these beads. These are electroplated glass faceted heart beads, and the heart shape is very abstract, just like this one. Let me move it up a little bit. As you can see, it hangs on an angle, and these are drilled on an angle as well. And they measure 12 by 10 by 5 millimeters. And I'm not exactly sure of the color because it's not listed, but as you can see, they have the same kind of colors that are on the pendant, pinks and purples and a slight hint of blue. But anyway, this pendant measures 27 by 19 by 8 millimeters. And these are faceted rondelles. They measure 6 millimeters, and the color is lavender. And these are crackle glass beads. They also measure 6 millimeters, and the color is also lavender, even though they look a little bit on the pink side. Now to make the beaded components, I'm going to use some craft wire, and this is 24 gauge, and it's in a titanium color. I really love this color. And I chose 24 gauge because the beads are on the small side, and also I want my piece to look a little bit more on the delicate side. So that's another consideration. You need to consider how thick you want the wire. So let's go ahead and start by removing this bail, and that's pretty easy to do. I need to see which of these loops has a cut, and it looks like this one has the cut, so I'm going to open up this loop, and I'm going to do it carefully because I don't want to break it. So I'm simply going to open it like this and slide out the bail. And let me close it again. And that's all there is to it. Pretty simple. Actually, let me put it aside because now we're going to create some beaded components. Here's a piece of wire. I usually work with long pieces, and I do that because there's less wastage. You can actually work directly from the spool, which is what I usually do when I'm not filming, but it's a little awkward to do it when I'm filming because I have to stay within the frame of the camera. So now I have to decide what kind of beaded components I'm going to make or how I'm going to arrange them. And that's another process. But basically what I do is I start arranging beads, and I do that until I'm satisfied. And right off the bat, I know I'm going to have more of these than these. So let's just say that I start with one of these, and my beaded components are only going to have one bead each. Sometimes I make components with more than one bead, but since both of these are 6mm in size, I'm just going to have each one on its own separate piece of wire. So I'm going to start with one of these, and then maybe one of these, like that, and then another one of these. So this is one strand, and I do love these, so I'm going to use them as an accent bead. So I think the next one will be one of these, like that. Same thing on the other side. I'm going to start with one of these, then one of these crackle beads. Let me just move them. And then one of these, and then an accent bead, like that. And then I think I'm going to continue the same pattern all the way to the clasp. So that's basically it, guys. There's no mystery. Like I said, I just place the beads down where I think they should go until I'm satisfied. Now another possibility would be to move this one over here like this. And then of course you'd need one on this side. And then another 2 rondelles and another accent bead. That's another possibility, but I think I prefer this one. Like this. And then a rondelle, a crackle bead, and another rondelle. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to repeat the pattern until I get to the clasp. And I think I want my necklace to be 18 inches. So that's another thing you have to decide. And what determines that is usually the size of the pendant. Usually when the pendant is on the small side, the length of my necklace is usually small. But if the pendant is large, I usually make my necklaces a little bit longer. So let me show you. Since my wire is kind of on the thin side, I'm going to make some wrap loops. And that's another thing you have to consider. There are so many things you have to consider, I'm telling you. But anyway, using my round nose pliers, I'm going to grab the wire about 1.25 inches down because you need to have enough wire to make the wraps. And now I'm going to bend it, switch to this part of the wire, decide how big you want your loop. So that's another consideration. And I don't want my loops to be too big, so I'm going to place my wire right there. Wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. So now I have a loop. I'm going to grab it with these pliers. These are crimping pliers, but I like using them for this purpose because they grab really well. And now using these pliers, I'm going to grab the tail. These are needle nose pliers, and I'm going to create some wraps. I usually only do about 2 wraps, but you can do as many as you want to. So now I'm going to cut off the excess using my flush cutters. And now you definitely want to tuck that little end in. Since I don't have a lot to hold on to, I'm going to grab the loop with these pliers, and I'm going to go ahead and tuck that little tail, that little end, because you don't want anything sharp. So now I'm going to load one of these beads. This is the one that's going to go by the pendant. I'm going to grab the wire with my round nose pliers again at the top of the bead, and I'm lining up the bottom loop, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. I'm going to grab my loop, cut off the excess, grab the end, and do a couple of wraps. Let me go ahead and line up my loops. You want to make sure they're facing the same direction. And cut off the excess. And now I'm going to tuck this little end in. And there's my first beaded component. And it's going to go right there by the pendant. So let me do the next one. Once again, I'm grabbing the wire 1.25 inches down, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose of the pliers, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. I'm going to open it up because now I need to insert the component into it. As you can see, it's inside the loop that I just created. And now I'm going to grab the loop, grab the end, do my wraps, snip off the excess, tuck in that little end, slide on the next bead, which is the crackle bead. Grab the wire, line up the bottom loop, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the end around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back, grab the loop, grab the end, and create some wraps. Cut off the excess and tuck it in. Let me center this loop, and I want to make sure my loops are level, facing the same direction. So now I have two beaded components connected. I have another piece of wire here. Once again, I'm going to grab it 1.25 inches down, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back, open up the loop, insert the component into it, grab the loop, grab the end, create my wraps, cut off the excess, tuck in that little end, and now I'm going to load this one. Grab my wire, line up the bottom loop, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back, grab the loop, cut off the excess, grab the tail, and do a couple of wraps. Cut off this piece, tuck in the little end, and since I'm here, let me line up my loops. I try to line them up when I make the first loop, but because the beads are kind of small, they get out of alignment a little bit. So now I have 3. It's very repetitive, but I am going to show you how to do this one. It's the same thing. But since the bead is a different shape, I'll show you anyway. So once again, I'm going to grab the wire 1.25 inches down, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back, Open up the loop, slide the component into it, grab it, grab the tail, do my wraps, cut off the excess, tuck in that little end, slide the bead on. So let me go in this way, like that. Grab the wire, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back, grab the loop, and this tail's a little bit long, so I'm just going to trim it, and now I'm going to grab it and create my wraps. Trim it off. And tuck it in. Let me go ahead and straighten out my loops. This one really went out of alignment for some reason. So now I have 4 beads connected. I think it looks adorable. I really like it. And that's how I'm going to build my strands. I'm just going to repeat the same exact sequence all the way up until I get the length that I want. So at some point I'm going to have to measure it because I want it to be about 9 inches approximately. And I don't want this video to be too long. So I'm going to go ahead and build these strands off camera and then we'll come back and finish the necklace. So I'll see you in a few moments. Okay, I'm back. As you can see, I completed my strands and each one measures about 8 3/4 inches, which is fine because by the time I add the clasp, it'll add to the overall length. And as you can see, I only added 2 hearts to each strand. As I was connecting everything, I just decided I didn't want to have any further up by the clasp. Of course, you can add more if you want to. I am going to use 2 of them for earrings. But the nice thing about this design is that you can make it as long as you want to because the bag came with plenty of these beads. So now I'm going to go ahead and connect the strands to the pendant. I'm going to use a 6mm jump ring, and this is very easy. I'm going to go ahead and open up this jump ring. Slide on one of the strands, and then the pendant, and then the other strand, and now let me close it. So this part's done. And here I have a toggle clasp and 2 4mm jump rings. Let me go ahead and open up one of these jump rings. Now this necklace does have a front and a back, and I usually like to connect the bar portion of the toggle on the right side because I'm right-handed, but it's up to you how you want to connect it. So this would be the right side. Let me go ahead and slide the loop in. And now the bar portion. Close up my jump ring. And now let me open up this jump ring. Slide the ring portion, and now the strand, and close it. I really love this toggle clasp, it's so pretty. Isn't that beautiful? So this is my finished sparkly Valentine's Day necklace, and I think it's adorable. I hope you like it as well. And I do want to model it for you, but I'm going to make a quick pair of earrings. So let me get the materials for that. Here are the materials for the earrings. As you can see, I've already made one. And basically, I have the heart at the bottom and then some dangles on the top. And I used a couple of jump rings to connect them. I've already created 4 of the dangles here. And I am going to use these 2 little heart charms. They measure 8 by 7 millimeters, and they're about 2 millimeters thick. And this is super easy. I'm going to go ahead and mount this heart on my ball head pin. And just like before, I'm going to grab the pin right above the bead because I'm going to create some wrap loops. So I'm going to bend it, switch to this part. I'm actually going to make the loop a little bit bigger. And now I'm going to wrap the tail around the nose of the pliers, flip my pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. Grab the loop, grab the tail, and do my wraps. And now let me trim it off. And I'm going to tuck in that little sharp end. So now I'm going to go ahead and assemble the earring. I'm going to open up this jump ring. Slide the heart into it. Close it up. And now let me open up this one. I'm going to slide one of the rondelles, and now the crackle bead, and now the little heart, and now this heart, like this, and now another rondelle, the crackle bead, the little heart, and the earwire hook. Hopefully I won't drop any of these. It is a little tricky. And that's why I'm using these pliers. Let me see what happened here. There's not a whole lot of space for all these charms. But I think that jump ring is closed. So there's my earring. Isn't it cute? It's so cute. And there's the finished necklace and earring set. I think it's so romantic. I love the colors. And of course I love all the sparkle. Perfect for a dinner date. So now I'd like to go ahead and model it for you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Have a great day and I'll see you next time. Bye.